Hello, everyone, and welcome to the National Inventor Club. My name is Brian Freed, and today we have some very interesting guests. Our main guest today is a CPA, and he's going to help us to answer questions like, all right, so we just started with our invention, we're starting to put money in, or maybe we started a business and we are investing in our business. So, what's a tax write off? What can we spend money on and get some kind of return on taxes, or what can we justify on what we spend? And then on the other side, maybe we need an LLC. We've heard that before, or an S corp or a C corp. What does all this mean? Well, we have Steve Moss. He's a CPA from Holden Moss, and he will be on. And we are going to have him as a recorded guest this evening. He wasn't able to join us this evening, but we do have his recording, and he's got some very valuable information. And I picked his brain from an inventor perspective to hear what he has to say. So, some great activity happening in the Inventor Smart Community app. If you haven't already joined, please come into the app. It's Inventor Smart Community. You can download it on the Google Play and Apple App Store. And for those of you who haven't met Andy in the app yet or have seen him on National Inventor Club, him and I have put together a new forum that we created. It's called discuss.inventorsmart.com. We're going to make some official announcements coming up. It's actually on. When you're in the app, you can go to a chat room and you can also go to the forum. And there's some very interesting topics that have already begun, and you're more than welcome to participate. So come check it out. Inventor Smart Community. You can download it on the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. So that should be very exciting for you to join us if you haven't already. We have some great guests to start with. I call them our intro guests, and they are here from organizations and sponsors and premium subscribers of the Inventor Smart app, and they are going to give us some tips, advice, and resources that are available. Let's start with Caitlin Friedman. No relation. I mean, I'm Freed, but you're Friedman.
Pretty
She
close,
is
yeah.
from, thank you for joining us. She is from GS1US. GS1US.org is the website. Well, what is all that? Caitlin, first, if you can just introduce yourself quickly and tell us what GS1US is about.
Sure. Yes. Thank you for having me back again, Brian. I'm really happy to be here again tonight. I'm Caitlin Friedman. I'm the marketing director for small business growth for GS1US. If you don't know GS1US, we are a not-for-profit supply chain organization. We maintain a lot of data standards that have to do with the supply chain, including barcodes. That's usually how people become introduced to us, especially if you're inventing a new product. But we do a whole lot more than that to just kind of help the supply chain move forward and just make sure retailers and brands and solution providers are all collaborating to help the patient, the customer, get safer products, trace products, have more transparency in the supply chain. We do it all.
That's great. So did you hear that? Barcodes. When you need a barcode, GS1US is the official place to get a barcode. So yes, we do all our inventing and we have a finished product and we need a barcode. GS1US.org is the place to go. Caitlin, you have some tips and advice for us as inventors, entrepreneurs?
I do. Yes. So the barcode is how you will come to know us, hopefully, if your product really takes off and you want to get into those retailers and work with marketplaces. Something we are really looking at right now at this moment in time, being a supply chain organization, we're watching the tariff situation pretty closely, and we're gathering data on how this is going to affect GS1US members and small businesses in particular. So it's not just about, barcodes. That's a huge part of what we do, but we want to make sure small businesses know that we maintain global standards that can help you kind of adapt to this changing market. And boy, things are changing fast. I don't have to tell you that. Small retail businesses, they're scrambling to find new sourcing options and trying to generally explore any way to stay profitable, even if it means passing those costs on to their customers. But for some, we hear that it's a moment of opportunity if you want to shift production to the US, fully embrace made in the USA marketing. But the bottom line is you really just can't hope that that any problems are just going to go away. Supply chain intelligence, it isn't really optional anymore. You have to really know what's this whole system behind this barcode. How do we move products from point A to point B? And so small businesses that really kind of leverage that knowledge of tracking your products and, what does it mean to have standardized product identification that's going to work with any retailer, any marketplace across the globe. It's a global standard. How does that help you automate your processes and be best positioned to adapt to all these shifts in trade policies and all these different changes that we think we're just seeing the beginning of? So, those who treat innovation as kind of a necessity and not an afterthought, I think they're going to have that agility. And so we have the flexible options with the barcode. You can get started for as much as $30 for one single UPC. Brian, you mentioned our company prefix model, which is more like a bundle. When you think about all your product variations and how you need barcodes, you're just going to find that that we have a lot of options to kind of suit what you need now in the short term. And hopefully you can still kind of make those long-term plans and see how that'll pay off and make that investment in your growth. So I'm on LinkedIn. Please look me up. Feel free to DM me if you have any questions. And gs1us.org has a lot of great information.
Thank you. Actually, I was going to mention that on your website, great information, podcasts, updates, current events. Thank you for doing what you do and keeping the inventor community and the entrepreneurs and startups out there involved in GS1 US. So thank you for what you do, Caitlin, and you and your team.
Great. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. We'll see you again soon. All right, let's have Elizabeth Doherty. We've seen her before. She is from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. She's the Northeastern Regional Outreach Director, and she always has great information, tips, advice, and updates from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Thank you for joining us, Elizabeth. Tell us what you have in store for us tonight.
Well, thank you, Brian. It's always a pleasure to be on with you and your audience. Yeah, I've got some fun and exciting things to share. First and foremost, I want to wish everyone a happy World IP Day. Now, World IP Day actually just happened this past Saturday on April 26th. I hope you all celebrated wildly and in fact can continue to celebrate for the next few days or weeks. World IP Day commemorates the year 2000, when the World Intellectual Property Organization was created. We now use it as a day to not only celebrate that anniversary, but to celebrate the role and importance of intellectual property as it helps inventors, innovators, and creators across the globe to bring products to the marketplace, to create brands, to create industry. So happy World IP Day. We, in fact, this year had a presidential proclamation calling out the significance of intellectual property. So thank you to President Trump, and again, happy World IP Day. Now, with respect to some things I want to be sure to bring to your attention, one is something that's new that's being offered through the USPTO under the guidance and direction of our acting Undersecretary and Director, Coke Morgan Stewart. Director Stewart has begun a program called USPTO Hour. It is a virtual program that is held to share information about hot topics at the USPTO. We've held 2 so far, and the 3rd is coming up on May 7th. You'll find it on our website if you just search the words USPTO Hour. The one coming up on May 7th will be held at noon on East Coast time, and will be focusing on the Patent Trial and Appeal Board practice. So if you're curious to know more about the PTAB, or Patent Trial and Appeal Board, tune in to USPTO Hour. Now, you do need to register, so I would encourage you to get on our website and register for the upcoming USPTO Hour. Speaking of things to register for, we are also accepting registrations for this year's National Summer Teacher Institute, or NSTI. Traditionally, it's been only open to a small cadre of people, 50 people. This year, we're blowing the doors off. This year, we are opening it up to anyone who would like to participate who is a teacher. Now, when I say we're blowing the doors off, we're actually expanding those who can participate. It was traditionally offered only to K through 12 educators. We are now offering it to post-secondary school teachers as well. It is going to be held virtually July 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. Again, virtually. with a really robust offering of learning for educators, again, for that K through 20 sphere. This is to empower you as an educator to bring IP into your school system, into your classroom, and share it with the next generation of inventors. And last but not least, while we're talking about kids, I want to let you know we've released some new kid pages on our website. There's some really fun stuff there, so I hope you'll find them. If you go to the Learning and Resources pull-down tab, go to Kids and Educators, and you'll find it there.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. So much going on at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. I know
Every
that
day.
you're right. You're at headquarters. You're in Alexandria, Virginia,
That is
and you
correct.
run the Northeastern Regional Office. There are regional offices all around the country, and great resource for us as inventors. We can come visit. There are outreach officers that are in your office and around the country. Can you just give us a brief summary of what we could do there and how we can find our office near us?
Certainly. So there are offices located. My team, as Brian has said, is at the Alexandria, Virginia headquarters of the USPTO, but we have offices located in Detroit, Denver, Dallas, and San Jose, California. In these regional offices, also to which we've added the community outreach office in New Hampshire, these have staff that are there to engage with you either in person or virtually if you find yourself in their region, and can provide you with conversation, education, information, both in person and virtually. Now, right now, our travel is a little bit limited, but we're still engaging a ton virtually. And, I think the travel will come back sometime. So we do like to get out into the communities. One of the services we offer, in addition to teaching webinars and courses and participating in panels and things like we're doing this evening, is we also offer that we can have one-on-ones with inventors who really want to have that direct conversation, particularly if they're really concerned that they're discussing confidential information. We can't provide legal advice, but we're happy to walk you through a conversation about the patent or trademark process, what it is you're doing, what your endeavor is, and offer any assistance with respect to programs or initiatives or tools that the USPTO has that help inventors and innovators.
Thank you so much. If you haven't already done so, or you haven't in the not too long ago time frame, go to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office website, uspto.gov. Access to inventor resource area there, all different helps and support and advice directly from uspto.gov. So thank you, as always, Elizabeth, for joining us, and we'll see you again very soon.
Thank you, Brian. I look forward to it. Happy
Thank you.
inventing.
Thank you. All right, let's have Justin Chen. He is one of National Inventor Club and the Inventor Smart Community sponsor, and he runs a company called PickFu. And I've been talking more and more about using PickFu because I'm in the middle of taking this design thinking class for my master's degree, and I've told all my fellow students about it, my professor and the chair of my MBA department. So hopefully you're getting some business, Justin. I know you're busy with whether it's corporations or it's small businesses, independent inventors. You've really built an amazing platform. So if you could just take a moment and tell us a little bit about PickFu, and then I know you have some tips and advice for the inventor community out there.
Sure. Always happy to be here, Brian. So quick introduction about PickFu. PickFu is a self-service consumer research platform that lets you instantly crowdsource feedback on your product ideas, designs, logos, or marketing creatives, all within a matter of minutes. We have a panel of millions of US and global consumers who will tell you what they like or dislike about your product design, or help you choose which logo or packaging is better. It all starts at $1 per response. So 15 responses is just $15, and it'll be done in a matter of minutes. So just think of it as a digital focus group that you can use to get private feedback about your decisions. You basically ask a simple question, upload a few creatives, choose your audience, and then we're going to go out and we're going to find your target audience. We're going to incentivize them to respond, and then make sure they give a stellar written response. And that's where you actually get a lot of the nuggets of insight. So for this month, my tip revolves around using consumer feedback to validate your product's pricing strategy and perceived value. And I think this is particularly crucial given the current tariff situation affecting manufacturing costs and your margins. As inventors, we often struggle with pricing our innovations. If you price it too high, you might miss out on potential customers. If you price it too low, you might undervalue your product or eat into your margins. And PickFu can help you find that sweet spot that consumers are willing to bear. So here's how you can use it. Use PickFu for price point testing. So you can start by running a poll where you show your product with different price points to understand perceived value. You can do a poll where you show your product and pricing against your competitor and their product and their pricing. You can also test out. We see this commonly done where you test out different feature combinations at different price points to try to optimize the value, the perceived value that they're getting for what they're paying. So as you're doing this, you're asking respondents which price that they would pay and understanding why, so that you can make the right business decision about whether you want to go for that particular variation of the products or if you're going to be competitive in the market. So that's my tip for the day. Remember, there is that coupon code Inventor for 50% off your first poll. So it's insanely affordable for anyone on the call.
Thank you for doing that for us, Justin. The other night I was with an inventor, and he has this product, this concept, and this is the way that he believes it should work. And I said, well, that's what you think, but what about what other people think? How are they going to use it? Because what you're looking at here is something that is right now taking 1 or 2 steps, and you're turning it into 4 or 5 steps, and it's cool and it's interesting, but is that what people want to do? Because I think maybe we could do it this way or that way, but you have it this way. Now he's going to be on your platform and he's going to be doing a survey. I said, don't listen to what I say or what you say or what you think and your friends and family, that they're not going to tell you everything sucks and you should change it, because you're not going to be happy with them afterwards. Why don't you get it from people who you've never met, who tell it like it is, and they'll never speak to you and you'll never speak to them, but you'll get valuable information. And actually, one of my products, I did a survey on PickFu and I showed it to the licensee, and they were very intrigued by the survey and all the results that came up. And I have a deal pending. So thank you for what you do. It's a really amazing platform. If you haven't already checked it out and you're in the middle of working on your invention and you need some advice, get it from people who you don't know and they don't know you. And just one quick thing, it's all confidential, right? All the people who are responding, they're under a non-disclosure agreement.
That's right.
Great. Well, thank you. I'm going to keep spreading the word because you got a great platform. And thank you for your sponsorship to National Inventor Club and the Inventor Smart community.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Justin. See you again soon.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I don't think we see Pierre here from the Small Business Development Center. So why don't we pull up Vitaly and Alan? They are both premium subscribers of the Inventor Smart Community app. Thank you for being premium subscribers. Membership definitely has its benefits, and I know some of you are just getting started as premium, so definitely check it out and take advantage of all interesting activities that we do in the app and out of the app. So thank you both. If you'd like to just quickly introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're from, and why you joined National Inventor Club and the Inventor Smart Community app. Vitaly, you want to go first?
Yeah, hi. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, great. So hello, everyone. I'm Vitaly from New York. I create 3D models and print them for household solutions and miniature figures. While I have focused on personal projects until now, I'm here to collaborate with fellow inventors. I'm excited to use my 3D skills to help bring your idea to life, and together we can invent something.
Thank you.
So I'm looking forward on creating something with you.
Thank you, Vitaly. Good to see you again. I think we know each other
Likewise.
for many, many years. So glad that you're part of the community. All
Thank you.
right. Thank you. So we have Alan Wilkinson. Alan, thank you for joining Inventor Smart Community and joining us tonight to introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you're up to.
Brian, pleasure to meet you. Thank you for having me. Just as a side note, I have heard of PickFu. It was referred to me as something that I might possibly want to use.
Good.
And I find it interesting to meet the inventor here. I was a little surprised.
Him and his partner invented this when they were students at Berkeley, and they built this amazing platform. They became a sponsor with us, and they give us 50% off, which is very nice, and it's worked out very well for many inventors. So if you need it, definitely use it. But go ahead, Alan.
Anyway, I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee. I have a creation that I'm entangled with. I don't really meet the description of most of my fellow inventors and small business persons, what they're doing and why they do it. I'm kind of out there on the very edge of the bell curve. I have this plan that I think the world needs, and it possesses me. I can't let it go until I get as far as I can get with it
Love
in
it.
order to hand it off to somebody else to go further.
That's fantastic.
I do have a nephew who I have attempted to get into the inventing world. I have a creation. I just know he is interested in it, but to pry him away from his life and day job, that's a challenge. I have another idea that I think is absolutely fantastic, and I want my granddaughter to take that on. So far, she's been reluctant. She's a junior in high school, but I think that with the right education, I can get her in the right direction.
Excellent. Alan, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We'd love to learn more about you. If you start posting, if you haven't already, in the Inventor Smart Community app, and also we have the discussion groups now that have topics, please participate, post, engage, reply to other inventors that are on there. Let's get some real good conversation going. You sound like an interesting guy, Alan. Vitaly, I know you for a long time, highly talented inventor and creator. So looking forward to seeing you both in the app and everybody else continuing their discussions with you. So thank you both for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So let's have the recording now of the CPA, Steve Moss. He's from Holden & Moss, and he's got some great information for us. Like I said when we first started this meeting tonight, we have questions. We're spending money on prototypes and consultants and research and development and marketing. All these things are happening all around us, whether it's a business or our invention. What can we write off? We have our taxes. That's why I love this topic in April. I know a couple of us are feeling the pain a couple of weeks ago when we had to file our tax returns, or maybe we're happy with the refund that we got. But at the end of the day, could you have gotten more? Could you have written off some of the expenses that you incur as being a small business owner? Well, we have Stephen Moss. Like I said, we couldn't get him live this evening, but I didn't want to miss this opportunity. So take notes and learn about LLCs, S Corp, C Corp, what you think is best for you. I know what his favorite Corp is or LLC is, so let's find out. Let's go ahead and run the recording, and then we'll come back afterwards and I'll say goodbye, and then we are going to have a after meeting networking on Zoom, which we will put in the chat. And if you're in the app, you'll also see the after meeting networking link in the app. So we'll see you very soon. All right, Andy, let's hit it. And we have Steve Moss. He is from Holden Moss. He's a CPA, a tax strategist, a business coach. Welcome to National Inventor Club, Steve. We're so happy to have you here today.
Hi, Brian. Thanks so much. I appreciate the invite.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and a little bit about your company.
Using the vernacular of the South, I'm a local yokel. I have lived within a 50-mile radius of where I was born, and I'm now the managing partner of a CPA firm that I joined right out of college, University of North Carolina. Go Heels. Haha. And I've always been chasing a question, which is business owners want to know how to make their business better. And the two ways we make it better are through tax strategies to generate cash flow and business coaching to help them make the business better.
That's great. So, Steve, we've had some interesting conversation, and I kind of challenged you as soon as I met you to say, you know what, Steve? Tell us, as inventors, entrepreneurs, startups, is our invention, working on our invention through the steps of the product development and actually commercializing our invention, maybe even earning royalties? What about if we want to start our own business and we're going to manufacture? There's all different costs involved there. Maybe there's even employees that we might have to hire, whether they're freelancers or employees that we want to hire full-time or part-time, whatever it is. So I challenge you with that question. What's a tax write-off for us? And also, many of us say, we want to start a business. We want to incorporate. Well, when should we incorporate? How do we incorporate? And what do we choose to incorporate? There's all these different terms that are out there, LLC, C Corp, S Corp, all these things. And then I know that you also shared with me, which I'm happy that you're going to share with the audience here, on maybe some things that we didn't know about and how we can file to be able to capitalize on some tax deductions. So, Steve, we're happy to have you here. I know you put together a couple slides for us, which is fantastic. So why don't we get right to it?
Good. That's great. So the first question is, do I even form an entity? Why would I form an entity for my business? And the big reason is legal liability protection. You've worked hard for what you have earned and saved up now, home, maybe retirement. You don't want to lose it through a liability claim. So always, any endeavor you're going to carry out, you want to do it through some type of limited liability entity. If you went to ask a lawyer, should I form an entity? I don't know of one that would say you don't need to, okay? And there's some other benefits to it all. It lends credibility to a business, particularly to consumers. And lenders often want you to be in an entity like that also. But these organizations can also assist us with succession planning and many other different ways. So, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So, what kind of entities are there? There are a lot of them. And the choice of entity is typically driven by tax considerations. The tax tail wags the business dog. And so oftentimes the knee-jerk reaction for most CPAs that I follow is, once it starts showing a profit, they want it to be a subchapter S corporation. Subchapter S corporations are great. They pass through income. Along on the right-hand side of the screen over here, you'll see the entities that are called pass-through. Pass-through entities push income through to the individual owners, and the owners pay income tax on the profits, or the owners deduct the losses coming through from the business. So proprietorships, LLCs, S corps, all of them pass through income. And if you have an LLC and there are two owners, that is called a partnership. Okay. So going up at the top, the C corporation, it ends up paying income taxes on its own income. And so there's the possibility you could get double taxed on some issues there. Going down, the next type of corporation is an S corporation. When you form a corporation, the default is going to be a C corp, so you have to file an election to be in an S corp. If you do nothing, you're going to be the first flow-through entity down here, which is a proprietorship. Probably not a good idea. Like I say, I want you to be in some type of entity. The next one is an LLC. You have the benefit of a legal liability entity, but for tax purposes, it disappears. It's called a disregarded entity. And so it is proprietorship wrapped in the clothing of legal protection. So that entity is a minimum starting point if it's only one owner. If you're going to pull in, and Brian and I, for example, we're going to form a business together, a multi-member LLC could be used, and that's going to be taxed as a partnership, okay? And lastly, there are trusts and nonprofits. Rarely do we come across nonprofits where someone, we don't have any chat GPT, open AIs that start out as nonprofits. That's a rarity, but you could. And usually we end up with trusts when someone dies or when someone forms a trust to pass it on to another family member.
So Steve, here we are, right? We're inventors. We're just starting off. We came up with this idea. We didn't even know that we were an inventor before we got into this, but we are. And we might be asking some friends and family for funds. We might be doing it on our own. Maybe we're just in the development stage. And I know the first slide you mentioned that most of the time is always a good time, depending on who you ask, right? But for us, like, when do we do this? How do we figure out which one is in our best interest?
So to begin with, I would start out as an LLC. The question I ask myself when someone comes to me with an entity selection question is, why am I not doing a single member LLC to start off with? So once you have expenses and you're going to be hiring people, at that point in time, you're hiring contractors, people, spending money, I would form an LLC. Now, for example, in North Carolina, it's pretty cheap. You can form one for $200. In New York, you have to publish, so it's a bit more complicated and a bit more expensive. So you'll have to make that decision, but I believe it's well worth it. And it's kind of like an inexpensive insurance policy. Yeah, think of it.
What about sole proprietorship? You hear that, and we've also had a guest on several years back that said, if you don't form any corporation, you are still able to get some tax deduction. So I think that means, right? I think that there's one side of it for tax deduction, but the other side for protection. But we're not quite there yet, right? We didn't we didn't start selling our invention or our product or start our business yet.
Well, actually, you're transacting business in the marketplace when you start spending money on the whatever that your invention is. So you're out in the marketplace dealing with people. That exposes you to liability. I don't want you to be in a proprietorship. I would suggest you go talk to an attorney or form your own LLC. Single member. And it's taxed the same. A proprietorship is a Schedule C in the tax return. A limited liability company owned by one person is a proprietorship, but it's wrapped in liability protection of the LLC. Yeah.
So we have this invention. We know we're going to start spending some money on it. Maybe we did a patent search. We feel good that we're going to keep starting to continue to spend money. We form an LLC, and now we have to figure out what to do next, right? We have no money in the bank account yet, but maybe we're funding it ourselves, or there's other people that are funding it. But at the same time, you have this LLC that now you're going to be able to pay things with.
Yeah, and so in everything you do, you enter into transactions in the name of that LLC. You're going to sign it by Joe Doe as manager of that LLC. Nothing's done in your personal name. Put money into the bank account as you need to cover it. We don't like debit cards. I'll just throw that out there. Don't use debit cards in business. Too much liability. Use a credit card. Okay. So back to the attributes, though, an LLC is simple. It's simple to add a Schedule C into your tax return. When you get into a corporation, it's a separate tax return that has to be filed from your personal. And so that adds expense, and in the beginning probably doesn't add much value. But as you start making a profit, and the profit is going up higher and higher and higher and higher, an S corporation can save money on Social Security taxes. I would think twice about doing that, though, because there are other benefits that LLC can overcome that. And then the C corporation has one massive benefit. This is called Code Section 1202. Lots of venture capital, private equity, they want to avail themselves of 1202, but they want it to be in an LLC or a partnership structure until they're ready to take advantage of that. So we'll go into a little bit about 1202, but 1202 allows you to exclude, when you sell your stock in one of these corporations, you can exclude massive amounts of gain. It's tax-free, federal and most states also, when you sell that corporation with that invention, patent, or operations going on in there. Okay.
Steve, I have a question. When I first started it, I may or may not have been giving the right information, so maybe you can tell me now, which I think I might know the answer to. But when I first started, I came up with inventions that could have some liability if somebody got hurt, injured, whatever. They were baby products. They were all in all different categories and industries. And I was told to form S corporations for each one of my inventions. So at the beginning point, I had lined up a bunch of S corps that I was now starting to pay taxes on. Do you think because of the way that the product might work and the risk that it might take would lead me towards a different corporation or filing?
Yeah, so number one, the law as to LLCs wasn't settled, and I don't know how long ago, but 20, 25 years ago, the law around the LLCs wasn't as settled as it is now. It's very settled now. And I don't want to practice law. I want everybody to talk with their attorney. Everything I hear, I'm not an attorney. But the flexibility from a tax standpoint, I would have you, if you were doing all this over again now, I'd have you form separate LLCs. Think of these legal entities as like compartments on a submarine. If it's enough value that you're going to put in that compartment, you don't want to put too much value in there before you open up in another compartment and separate those activities or separate the IP out into separate entities. Now, the beauty of an LLC is you can pull it in and out of the LLC. You can transfer it between LLCs, that IP, transfer assets in there. It's no problem. Once you put it into a corporation, you try to move it out, it's generally going to be a taxable transaction. That's why LLCs and partnerships are so valuable, so very
Understood.
valuable.
Thank you. So you're saying for each product or each business to form its own LLC, not to have the LLC as, let's say, the brand name and then have product names underneath it, but to have each one as an LLC?
Yeah, I need to know more, but if it's going to be an income producing activity or the asset, the intellectual property is going to appreciate in value, Yeah, I want it in an LLC. There's another reason an LLC is valuable. Um, Assume I'm your wife. We're married and we own together, or you own an LLC that has all this intellectual property in it that's appreciated from nothing to $1 million. You die, leave it to me. I get to step my basis up to $1 million on the inside of that LLC because I'm inheriting it. If it were an S Corp, I can't touch the inside value. So it's a great way to avoid taxes on buying and selling interests in an LLC versus buying and selling interests in an S Corp. Lots of advantages. Yeah.
That's great. And this is on the federal level, right?
That's correct. And most states follow these rules, but you will have to double check it. They're not always the same. That's a great point. State income taxation can be very different state by state. Yeah. So going down on the types of income, if the type of income on an S corporation is going to pass it straight through and pass income through, pass deductions through. If you have a loss, you'll be able to deduct it against your personal income. Maybe. There are more limitations on the deductibility of losses in an S corp than there are in an LLC. LLC also has the advantage of being able to have a partner or bring on an associate, and we can separate the ownership of equity from sharing in profits. In an S corporation, we can't do that. And so that's a really valuable opportunity there to be able to do that in an LLC or a partnership. And then the C corporation is going to pay income tax on its own profits, and any losses are not deductible personally, they carry over. So I still, on the allocation of income and the income tax, the deduction of losses, LLC wins here on that line. As I mentioned, loss limitations, S corps have more loss limitations. There are really very few in an LLC. If you're able to put the money into it and spend it, you're able to deduct it. We'll talk about some other limitations on expenses. C corps, you can't pass through deductions. Compensation, when you have an S corp, you got to pay yourself reasonable compensation. That's after it gets going. If you don't have a profit in there and all you have are development, research, and experimentation costs, there's no reasonable compensation required. In an LLC, you don't have to pay yourself a salary or reasonable compensation. And there are lots of games we can play with profits only interest, or you've heard of carried interest. It was a big tax term that people were talking about. That's also a great attribute of LLCs. And then we get over on compensation. We don't have to deal with the compensation that much on a C corp. It's the opposite. Usually we're having to deal with too much compensation being paid out. And then down below, S corps are very popular with CPAs. And again, going back up to the reason, it's to limit the Social Security taxes that are paid. LLCs are very popular to go into if you're going to be, attract money, venture capital, private equity. They like an LLC. C corp, love it. It's the potential to be 1202, but it's only those shareholders in the very beginning. And then lastly, down at the bottom, there's no great tax benefits if you're going to bail out or monetize an S corporation. You get capital gain on it if you've held it more than 1 year. However, in the partnership, we can turn it into a C corp just by making an election. And then we have the availability of this code section 1202. It's possible.
That's great. You know what, Steve?
I go to a lot of detail there. Sorry.
Some of us may need this right now, where we have this invention or this business that we're developing, and we needed to figure out what we're going and how we're going to incorporate. There's some that might be in one of these that might want to reconsider. And some of us are just not at this stage yet, but what's nice is that they can reference this conversation at any time to be able to help them to make a better decision at the point when they need it. So thank you for this.
Sure. Just a caveat. Go talk to a CPA or an attorney. Just you really should not do this on your own. Yeah, there are so many individual characteristics that enter into it. And I'm giving you generalities. You may be the exception to my rule.
Aren't you one? You're a CPA. Okay.
A recovering CPA. Yes, call me.
Okay. Let's go to the next slide.
So when you have losses in a business, and the main reason for this screen is to talk about hobby losses. Business losses, particularly through a Schedule C, and you're not working full-time for this business, so you have a job, probably getting a W-2. Maybe you're getting a high W-2. But these high losses, along with a high W-2, is begging for IRS scrutiny. And so the main thing I want to talk about on this screen is to touch on proving that you're not a hobby in case you get audited. And the way we prove it is for you to have a plan. Have a well-documented plan for how and when you expect to show a profit. Have a written plan. Make sure there are no elements of personal pleasure related to it. So the classic case of a doctor having a horse farm, that we've had those. They get audited, they're going to lose those deductions. And so you don't have to lose the deductions, but you do have to have a plan. And so documentation is the name of the game in everything we do. Document thoroughly. Use of a consultant like Brian to guide you along the way. There are numerous court cases where the court case is considered whether the entrepreneur used consultants to help him, guide him along the way. And then be very careful about any element of personal pleasure to make sure that you minimize that so that we don't get in trouble with it.
So, Steve, let's just, when you say document thoroughly, is this having a business plan? Is this if somebody asks you what you do to kind of explain it to them?
Yeah.
What is document? Is it a business plan? Is it kind of a structure, a website that kind of explains what you do?
So much more than just a website. It is a document, much more like a business plan. We use something called a one-page strategic plan. I can send you a copy in PDF. Right. It's quite complex. It takes a while to fill it out, but every business should have a one-page strategic plan. That would be probably a great session to go through and talk through the elements of it. But it's going to make you walk, talk, and quack like a duck instead of not having critical elements that a business would have. And it starts out with foundational issues like, what are your core values? What's your core purpose? How are we going to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace? What are the core capabilities of this product? Have you studied jobs to be done theory to figure out what are the needs of the user of this product? What are their jobs to be done? Things like that.
Okay.
Good question.
And you mentioned, so this hobby, right? Most of us are working a full-time job. We came up with this big idea. We're not sure really if it's going to work or not work, but we just have this feeling that it's going to change our life, and we want to be gazillionaires. And we want to take a chance. So most of us turn our side hustle into a business. And there's different ways that we can kind of define what a business is. Like we hear licensing to earn royalties or to manufacture it where we're making it and selling it ourselves. So I guess that kind of classifies what a hobbyist is, right?
Yeah, so any enterprise that's carried on for profit is called a trade or a business. Any enterprise intended to be carried on for a profit. And so if just because you don't have revenue yet doesn't mean you can't deduct the expenses. When you look at the expenses of a business, particularly in the innovation or invention phase, you have to look at it as though there are a couple of different filters. And one of the filters is this Code Section 174. This used to be called the friend of an inventor, but with Trump administration 1, they changed the law, and these expenses associated with research and experimentation are required to be capitalized now and amortized over 5 years. We are hoping that Trump has proposed that they would make and return all these Section 174 expenses to being fully deductible, okay? So this filter, you theoretically should be running all your expenses through this filter, and if you have any of these expenses, they should be capitalized and amortized over 5 years. Painful.
With the wages, for example, let's say many of us where we're just starting off, we're using freelancers.
Yep.
And maybe we're using an Upwork or Fiverr, maybe some other design. These type of things, we don't necessarily, from a business, paying a business to a business, we don't necessarily have to worry about wages in that regard, right? Those can be kind of used as expenses.
It could be, but to the extent that the compensation for employees or anything in this R and research and development, research and experimentation needs to be studied to determine whether or not it needs to be capitalized or not. You need to document it. Again, documentation, figure out whether it gets carved out by this and has to be deducted. If you deduct it, and I'm sure a lot of people just walk over this rule and just deduct it as paid. And the consequence is if you get audited, and if you don't get audited, you get away with it. If you get audited, they're going to require it to be capitalized and to be amortized over 5 years. Really hope, and if you have any say with your congressman, push them to change this rule this year.
Another quick question, Steve. Let's say for the most part, we're working on our invention. Maybe we have a little office in our house, or maybe we rented some space or a garage. We're paying a little rent. I have my garage. I have some inventory in my garage now. I want to get a rental space to be able to store it so I can put my car away. What about the amount of space within our house that we use or garage? How can we kind of put that into one of these buckets?
Yeah, so that would be more of an administrative and general expense. So that's another category called Code Section 162, ordinary and necessary expenses of running the business. And there is a game to be played there, though, to make certain that you establish a home office for that business. That home office is used solely and exclusively for that purpose. And when you qualify that home office, it's going to open the door to a lot of other deductions like internet, utilities,
right.
Things like that. And also it makes all your mileage that driving for the business deductible from your home. Yeah.
Great.
So ordinary and necessary business expenses, other these research and experimentation businesses don't get filtered out. They go straight through and they get deducted. Okay. So the first filter is Code Section 174, research and experimentation. There's one more filter on a select set, and I'm not going to go through it, of these Code Section 174 expenses to get filtered out and qualify for a research and development tax credit. And so too much to go into here, okay? We actually, as firms get larger, we farm this out to specialists. We have partners that we refer this work to because it is so incredibly specialized. But realize when you're starting out, there is a standard credit for this Code Section 41 R&D credits, and there's also a simplified version of it that makes it a little bit easier. Yeah.
So for us, when we're just starting off, we may not necessarily need these just yet, but you pulled these out to kind of explain it from the position where we're at as an inventor.
It may be a benefit. It may be a benefit to you. Yes. Yeah. So should consider it from the beginning and watch out for it and be anticipating it as you go. Yeah, because this affects how you record expenses. Which of the expenses are 174 R&E expenses versus Code Section 41? So that gets into your accounting, whether you use a spreadsheet or QuickBooks Online. We need to classify it and capture it. Again, documentation, document.
So R&E, R&D is research and development. What's R&E?
Research and experimentation.
And experimentation. And that's really what we're doing, especially when we come up with our idea. We're working with a designer, whether it's an industrial designer, an engineer, CAD.
Yeah.
I have one product I'm working on here. I have 6 different iterations of prototypes. So it takes time till you get it to where you want, and there's some other expenses along the way. So you're saying to just keep it documented, and those are the type of things that we can write off.
Yeah. And Jim Collins uses the term shoot bullets, then cannonballs. And that's what you're doing during this phase. You're shooting bullets, testing, go back, test, go back. And so we want to capture these expenses. If we don't capture them, there's no way we're going to qualify for the R&D credits. So your general ledger has to be able to capture this stuff, and you need to know about it. Yeah. Cool.
Great.
All right. So this would be a mature structure. Either right before you're getting ready to monetize it, but you have income coming in. And so in a typically fully built out, now this is before going to converting to a C Corp and going to Section 1202. Starting on the left-hand side, you may have product sales. And if that is profitable enough, we may want it to be an S corporation, but it started out as an LLC, and it is licensing the product from an LLC that owns the intellectual property, the red circle. That LLC red circle owns the rights to your intellectual property, and going all the way over on the right, family ownership considerations, we might want to think about before it's fully matured, bringing the kids in, bringing the wife in. I'm in an equitable distribution state, so the wife's going to share in it whether it's on her name or not. If developed during marriage, you can talk about that with your attorneys. But it would be a great way to increase their net worth, and it's also a great way to increase the benefits of Code Section 1202. So you got an S Corp selling the product for a profit. It's paying royalties into this LLC, which is where that's where the real value is in the intellectual property. And then you may go through and sell the intellectual property. If you did, you would pay capital gains, typically. There would be a rare situation you wouldn't qualify for capital gains, okay? But you also may come along, and once it's valuable and the value of that intellectual property in there has not reached 50 million, that's a key number. Before it reaches 50 million, you issue stock, convert it to a C Corp, and then at that point you strike a value. And 10 times that value is what 1202 lets you exclude of your gain in the future. So I haven't done one of these in the last year, but 2 years ago I did one, and the value came out to be 40 million. So 10x, when they sell this entity, the stock that they were issued, they'll be able to exclude up to 400 million of gain. It's a big deal.
Wow. You mentioned the kind of the breaking point between the LLC to the C Corp. But what about in the beginning, all the way to the left there? If we were an LLC and now you're suggesting an S corp, when is that break?
As it becomes profitable enough.
Profitable.
And if your desire is to shelter income taxes, payroll taxes, Social Security taxes, because that's the biggest reason for having an S corp is shelter paying additional Social Security taxes. I probably would not, but you could. Okay.
Okay.
I love LLCs. Okay. I love LLCs. And then keep going around. One of the things that I did not mention on an LLC that has multiple members is taxed as a partnership. It files a separate income tax return. And one of the benefits in a partnership is, as I mentioned earlier, when you buy out a partner or a new partner buys in, you get to step up the inside and outside basis of whatever you're buying into. So, Brian, you and your wife own an LLC that has intellectual property. You have a total of $10,000 invested in it, and it's worth $1 million. I come in and I want to buy a 20% interest in it for $200,000. If it's an S corp and I pay in $200,000, nothing happens to that $10,000 cost basis on the inside. If, however, I pay $200,000 for an interest in an LLC and we make a 754 election, we get to step up the basis of the intellectual property with respect to me to $200,000 and get to amortize it. And I get the deductions for that. So it's highly attractive for investors coming in. They love to come into a partnership structure, LLC partnership structure. Okay. And then lastly, over on the right-hand side, I wanted to mention family ownership. Consider family ownership. There are ways in an LLC that you can keep them as a passive investor. Passive investors in an LLC, even though it has active income that might be subject to Social Security tax, we can shelter them from that as a passive investor. And it lets them share along. If you become wildly successful at this, who knows whether when any of us die, if there's going to be an estate tax, but the estate tax is onerous. It's expensive. So if we can split some of the value out now so it's not included in someone's estate, it's a good deal. We're escaping that estate tax.
I could tell you the family ownership probably takes an interest when they start to see that the invention of the business does well. Otherwise, they don't want to have to do anything with us. So
good point. That's right. That's right. Okay. And then last is, there's a lot going on in the world right now in Washington, D.C. Trump has been the most active on issuing executive orders of any president in the last 20 years, maybe ever. I don't know. One of the biggest questions we come across are tariffs, and everything I'm reading is, other than China and a handful of countries, it sounds like tariffs are going to settle into about 10 to 20%. And they're going to continue to use tariffs as a lever, as a negotiating tactic to bring people to the table. Keep your eye open, though. If you have a product you're going to be manufacturing, there's talk of setting up a special manufacturing tax rate. So you could set up an entity that would pay a much lower income tax by being a manufacturer. And then lastly, as I talked about earlier, these research and experimentation expenses under Code Section 174, it is presently in the proposals to make that back fully deductible in the year paid and not having to be capitalized. That's it.
Very interesting. We will find out as the world turns.
Yeah.
So, Steve, there are inventors and entrepreneurs at all stages of their invention. We're just learning all this. I mean, as much as I can on National Inventor Club to be able to get experts like yourself on and get this information out to us. And again, whether it's now or in the future or just whatever we need, we have this reference of information. I know there's a lot more to it. You kind of gave a high level and we appreciate it. But you've seen a lot. You've seen inventors, entrepreneurs be highly successful, licensing deals, start manufacturing companies, and you've seen some that have had challenges and not done so great. From your perspective, what do you think is some great words of wisdom from you that you could share with our audience?
We find that there are three barriers to growth. As you grow, you're going to hire people there, and that's going to create drama. So you need to know how to manage people. We have tools that we've developed where we have one-to-one program and scorecards to help with that, to get rid of that drama in the workplace. Secondly is you need to watch cash like a hawk. And so monitoring the cash, understanding sources of cash, coming up with cash, that's the other big barrier to growth. And then lastly is your freedom. You can't sell your soul to this. It's likely not worth it. A divorce and losing the kids and the family. So I come at this not from work life is not a balance, it's a hierarchy. God first, or whatever spirit you have, family, and then the business. You got to keep that hierarchy in place, or you can lose it all. You're not able to keep it in balance. So they're my three.
There's inventors that are just starting off, and sometimes I get the call that says, Brian, I quit my job. I am putting everything I have into this invention, and I'm going to go for it. I'm sure you've seen that, and I've seen it. I also have seen people balance, like you're saying. So maybe you can tell us how to kind of get through that fork in the road to know if we should go for it or not. And I know you don't have a crystal ball, but just from a kind of tax strategy and financial perspective, what do you think is a good strategy for that?
Don't dig into the house. Hit it last. Keep the house as your pressure relief valve. And there are strategies that are very aggressive. They're called Rob's transaction, rollover as business startup. We've handled some that clients have gone through. We don't recommend it, but it allows you to take money out of a retirement plan and then invest it into a business without paying tax on it. The alternative to that is to take the money out of the retirement plan, pay the taxes, pay the penalties, and fund your business through with the retirement money. Don't put your house up. That would be my advice. Maybe borrow some, but don't put the house up entirely. Yeah.
Look, we have a lot of decisions to make. We have to find people that we can trust to be able to get us to the point of where we need to see our invention idea, our business. There's people with app ideas and just all different types of service business that are part of National Inventor Club, and they're working on an invention also. A lot of decisions to make. Hopefully your information change somebody, help somebody, and just prepare for the future. So Steve, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your wisdom and your wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate your having me.
Thank you. We'll see you again soon.
Great. I'd love it.
Thank you. All right. That wraps up another edition of National Inventor Club. Thank you for joining us. Look. All right. Well, what did you think? It's something we need to know about, right? We're inventing, we're building a business. When we come up with an idea, we look at it as a business. We're doing all this research and development and getting it to a point where we want to commercialize it, whether it's licensing or manufacturing, whatever it is. These are important things for us to know. So I'm really happy and I'm excited that we have a CPA with his wisdom and knowledge. Steve Moss, thank you for that. And we have it in our archives in the National Inventor Club YouTube channel. We've been live streaming in our Inventor Smart Community app, YouTube, Facebook, a bunch of other social media platforms. Yes, you can review it on the YouTube channel later. We have the National Inventor Club YouTube channel. We also have links to all this in the Inventor Smart Community app if you're not part of it. Thank you all for joining us. I know that if you're on our subscriber newsletter information, you have the after meeting networking link. We're going to go into the Zoom meeting right now. Whoever can join, and if you have some time, it'd be great to chat amongst each other for a little while. And also, if you've seen it in the social media streams, the Zoom link is in there. So let's hop on to Zoom. I'll see you in there in about 2 minutes, and we'll continue the chat. For those of you who are active in the Inventor Smart Community app, come check out our latest forum. Andy, thank you so much for your help and support. I think you're in the background there. Didn't mean to surprise you and put you on screen, but thank you for everything and for putting all this together. And what do you think? They should check out that Discuss forum, right?
Yeah, the Discuss forum is great. Good conversations. It's pretty intuitive and slick. So it's a good tool for us to have going forward. I'm excited that we added it, and I'm just looking forward to more people to join. I think there's already 20 plus people who have joined, so it's off to a good start.
Fantastic. All right, we'll see you in the app, and we'll see you on the Zoom live stream in the Zoom after meeting networking. We'll see you soon. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. All right, bye-bye. Good night.